Oh, hello, you guys. Let's go ahead and get into this topic, which is about being laid off. How many of y'all been laid off lately? Or have you ever been laid off in the past? Sorry, I'm getting my notes together. I pushed a button, honestly, by accident. But welcome and welcome back, you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to continue to catch the vibe. And here we just talk about everyday topics and really simple things that people see as simple but are actually kind of really complicated, and just different perspectives on life. So I hope you enjoy. Get in the comments, let me know what you think. Share this video with someone who you think may need to hear it, because we're talking about getting laid off. And all these people just got laid off, you guys. All these people got laid off. Yes, what was it? The Doge situation, and all those federal workers got laid off. Child, I'm going to tell y'all, this is crazy. And I'm going to let you know what your layoff really means. Because a lot of times when you get laid off, everything is a blur. You black out. All you can see is the negative side of it. But a lot of times you don't see the positive side of it. And I just want to make this video because it's a current kind of topic and a lot of this stuff is going on. Oh, excuse me. I drank some coffee. But at the same time, I wanted to share my experience with you as well. And hopefully it can help people who are dealing with this now or in the future. Basically, right? There's a positive perspective of being laid off and there's a negative perspective of being laid off. When you're first laid off, more than likely, before you're even laid off or fired, more than likely you feel it coming. You see it coming. You just know in your soul, you know it's going to happen, right? And even if you don't know necessarily when it's going to happen, you can feel the vibe shift in the environment that you're in when it comes to work. Because every time that I've had a layoff, I knew that it was coming. It felt like a cloud looming over my head, or like this heaviness in my chest, to the point where I would even be dragging, like coming into work. But the negative side is usually what you see first, because you're losing income. You're confused maybe about what it is that you're going to end up doing. And you don't necessarily know what's next. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. That's what brings on the onset of the negative emotion first. But then as time goes on, there are certain benefits, depending on how you've been set up or how you've set yourself up, that can turn out to be positive, even if you don't have the greatest setup, even if you don't have the most savings or a business to fall back on, or something else going on in your life, or a spouse maybe who has another income. Even if those things are very dire, there's always a positive way to look at it. My goal and intentions for these videos is to try to help people change their perspective, because it's something that I've worked on a lot behind the scenes, and it's something that I just really feel it's important to share with you guys. I want you to remember not to be scared, but to be prepared, and that your perspective is really important about changing a lot of things and circumstances in your life, and that it's okay for you to not know the answers. Know that I don't know all the answers, but I'm just giving you what I found out works for me to keep my sanity, because sanity is few and far between and very scarce in these parts. So keep in mind that that's the goal that I have. Now, when it comes to a more positive perspective about being laid off, or really the real reason that I feel a lot of us get laid off, there's about 3 things that go into that positive perspective. Now, before I do tell you those things, I'm going to tell you my layoff story, right? So, story time. I was working in corporate America. I had been working in corporate America since 2011. Well, I'd say 2012, because that's when I first started working at Walmart, if I'm not mistaken. Years and time actually don't do well in my brain. But I was working at Walmart. I was a cashier, and I rose up I was definitely not thinking about anything when it comes to what I'm doing now on social media or like having a business, working for myself. My whole mindset was on how do I support myself and my children? Because I had children. I had two children at that point, and I had been working in the service industry. I had been working as a waitress or a server for several years, and I was tired of working as a server. And basically, I decided, where's more money? And it wasn't necessarily just about money. I enjoyed being a server, but I knew in my mind that it was something that I couldn't do forever. And not only did I want to make more money, but I wanted something that was more sustainable. So I'm like, okay, all I knew at that point was get a good job and work your way up, right? And that's kind of the mentality that a lot of minority parents, especially from the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 70s, tell their kids, right? Get a good job, especially if it's a government job or a federal job or a state job. Get in with the county. Ain't that what they say? Get in with the county. You better go on and get in with the county. Get in with the city. That's what they say. So you get a good job, you stay at it, you do a good job, you work your way up, and then you retire, right? But obviously life is not that way, and it's starting to change when it comes to that being a viable way to survive, right? So everybody's got side hustles, everybody's got 6 jobs like Kevin Gates, and it's just not sustainable. So if you really think about what we're experiencing now in the world, you'll understand that a lot of this started a long time ago. And I can see that in my own life. And when I was tired of serving, I went to Walmart and I got a job as a cashier. And before I was there for a year, I was promoted within the front end of the store. So the first 3 months I was there, they saw my capabilities, they saw the effort that I was putting in, and they started training me on customer service. And then they trained me on Money Center. And I was doing customer service and Money Center on the regular. I really couldn't stand customer service, but I knew how to do it. And I really couldn't stand the Money Center, but I knew how to do it, right? And it's not necessarily like me not enjoying my job, because I enjoy the aspects in serving and customer service of helping people. Like, I enjoy people. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy making people happy. That is my drug of choice. People pleasing. And that can be detrimental, but it does provide fulfillment for me when I'm able to impact or assist someone in their life so that they can live for the better. And that's what I was doing. So I'm like, okay, cool. I was a 22-year-old, maybe 23. And my kids were under 5 at that time. They weren't in kindergarten yet. They were still in like daycare, pre-K. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't necessarily like my hours once I moved up. But I was like, listen, it's bringing in more money. I can save. I want to buy a house. I had all these plans. So when I went from cashier to customer service and Money Center, they saw my potential and they asked me if I wanted to be a customer service manager, like CSM. That's just the person you see on the front end walking around with the earpiece. They bounce around and they're helping people and doing all these things. So that's what I was. And this had to be almost 10 years ago now, because child, my birthday's coming up. And I don't know if you're going to see this video before my birthday, but child, my birthday is coming up and that's almost 10 years ago. So after that, I was feeling good, but the stress of being in a customer service manager position was ridiculous. Like, they were not paying me enough for that shit. And I was tired of it. And it started to show in like the way that I kind of like dealt with customers. I was like unfazed at that point. I was disillusioned to the advancement and what it actually brings. And that was the first time I was ever like in a management position. Like, when I served tables, sometimes I would get the key card to give overrides when the manager had to run to the bank. But it wasn't that much responsibility. And I was really stressed out. And I knew that the layoff was I knew I was going to get fired, right? So it happens. And immediately a weight felt lifted off of my shoulders. Now, fast forward after that, I got another job I was working now in a more elevated position. The job that I got after Walmart was a customer service position in a call center for another major corporation, another major business, basically another major chain where you can get things and shop. But I was in the online division. I don't want to tell y'all all my business now. Calm down. Relax. But it was definitely in an elevated position. And now I was able to sit down. That's the goal that I set. Because being in Walmart, walking around all day, that is hell on your feet, on your back, on your body. And I was exhausted. And I could feel like the lack of longevity in that position. And that's what kind of took my spirit out of it. So my goal when I got fired, laid off, whatever, I don't care. When I was in that position, it's like the sun, when I went outside that day, the sun was shining. And my goal when I walked out of Walmart's door was from now on, after serving tables and being in customer service at this retail job, I want a job where I can sit the fuck down. And that's exactly what I got, which was a customer service job. So now I'm learning all these new skills. The company that I ended up working for, they had a great community within the company. They had great training programs. They had great skill building activities that gave you skills you could put on your resume. They just didn't pay that much. And it was a major commute. It was a major investment that I was making. I made it work for almost 5 years. It was literally really close to my 5-year anniversary. The same cycle happened where I basically was able to move up. I started in an entry-level position and I rose up pretty quickly. So by the time, I think it was I started off as a general customer service agent in the call center, and then I moved to a specific category of customer service, which was outside of general. And then from there, I moved to a different department, which took me off of the phones and into chat and email. And then within chat and email, I got more training for a specific, even more niche group within customer service. Instead of handling the general public on the phones, I started handling a specific group of people on the phone. Then I went from the phone to chat and email, and I was handling both general and the specific group that I was already trained on. And then I went from doing that to only handling a very, very small niche specific group of customers, right? Which was actually better because it meant I was less busy every day. It meant that I had more of a relaxed type of vibe because each specific niche had their own manager, supervisor, things like that. And then from there, I applied for other positions. I didn't get those positions and I ended up being a team lead, kind of similar to the customer service manager position that I had at Walmart. And from there, I didn't really know what I was going to do because I had applied for a lot of different positions at other places within the company, and it never really seemed like I was given the opportunity to excel. Even though I had excelled so much up until that point, it was kind of giving me the same vibe of them wanting me to put in the same effort that I was putting in, but without compensating me. It was really weird. The way that I felt at Walmart about being asked to do so much and then being disillusioned by the reality was the same feeling that I got from the people who interviewed me within that company that I worked for. That was going to be what was expected of me if I were to move up, and they could sense that I wasn't vibing with that. And I don't think that they saw a possibility for me to move up because I wasn't willing to do the same thing I did at Walmart and be, doughy-eyed. So they kind of kept me in the position I was in. From there, I didn't really know what I was going to do. But by this time, I had my third son and I was like, I can't do this anymore either. I got to do something better than this because now I got a third kid. And even though the kid's dad was in my life still, we were still in a relationship, I just did not like the lack that I was feeling in my life. So I ended up finding a better job. And it was funny because I wasn't fired. I wasn't laid off from this job, but my position was getting eliminated there. Right? So y'all got to follow me on the story because this video might be a little longer. My position as a team lead where I was, it was a cushy position. Great. I was getting paid a decent amount, but it was stressful. I had to take escalated calls. I wasn't in a niche group anymore. I was back to handling the general population. And with all the training that I had to handle escalated calls from pretty much everywhere and help people with pretty much everything. So, it was responsibilities that I had, but there were also a lot of perks that made it fun. However, when I had my third son and my income wasn't changing and the place that I was living in, it was like this pressure. The same pressure that you would feel if you were fired or laid off was the same pressure that I was feeling because my position was being eliminated and the place that I was living ended up having mold in it and it was really bad. And I just had a newborn and I had to get the heck out of there. So that pressure and that necessity that you feel, it was still there for me. And what made it even worse, not so much that my position was getting eliminated. I wasn't getting fired, but they were putting me in a department where now, instead of only taking a few escalated calls every now and then and helping other employees find answers to their questions, I was going to be constantly on the phone again and taking calls that were escalated. And I was just like, I can't. In my mind, I was just like, I can't do this shit. Because it's less benefit and more work and only a small, slight increase in income. And I just snapped and I just went crazy, like applying for positions. So funny enough, I ended up finding a position before I went into formal training for the new place that I was going to be, the new department I was going to be in. I went on several interviews, one of which was for another company that I found out when going to the interview was technically going to be like a startup. And you went through 3 cycles of interviews, literally the same day. I went there for my initial interview. Well, they talked to me over the phone, scheduled the interview. I went in for the initial interview and they told me that I made it to the next round. So basically I had to stay because they told us to set aside a certain amount of time. I stayed through to the end, ended up getting chosen for the job, but I didn't know the day that I interviewed all those different rounds that I was going to be chosen for the job. So I went back to working. I started training for the new department that they were going to put us in because my position got eliminated. And while in training, it was literally like the last week of training or the last few days of training, I got a phone call during our lunch break that I was being offered the position and they were literally going to pay me double what I was getting paid at the time. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what did you say? I was blown away at that point. And it was actually an even better position. It was an upgrade, right? So I didn't have to be on the phone all day. I was mostly doing back end work and it was a title that would add more experience to my resume in a field that I had been trying to break into that company. Well, when I was at the company that eliminated my position. So all these times I get these upgrades. Now fast forward to this new job where I'm getting paid double. Things start happening. I feel good about it. There's a lot of improvement that I have. I'm not necessarily rising up in the ranks, but it was more of like a good position that I really didn't feel like I wanted to elevate or force myself to elevate in. And there really weren't a lot of opportunities for advancement the way that it was in those other 2 positions. So I was good where I was at. It just felt like they began to have regrets about who they hired, how many people they hired, the speed at which they hired us, and the rate at which we got paid. That's what I feel like was the regret of that company, because things began to kind of fall apart. They wanted to change our title, which ultimately led to, in my intuitive opinion, that they were going to try to change the rate of our pay, which ultimately led to me and several other people being let go in some very unethical ways that I really feel like, had the proper authorities known about it, we probably would have been able to file some type of class action lawsuit. But I just have a certain belief about legal matters that puts me in a position where I don't really want to fight it, because that usually causes more stress than not. And I wasn't in a position where I wanted to put that effort into it. I just wanted to allow God to show me where it was that I needed to go. And I know that was a long story, but it led me to the position where I'm in now. And I've been creating content for going on 5 years now. I started in 2020, and I really started in 2019, like getting up the courage to film myself, learning how to edit, doing all these different things. And I've been out here in the streets grinding, shooting in the gym for a while. And I just kind of take my time on things because I'm getting older and my kids got older, and there was a lot. I was going through a divorce. Child, I was going through a divorce and a breakup at the same time. That's a story for another day. But I started to work on my business before I got laid off from that last kind of cushy job. But I knew it was coming. I could feel it coming. There was a lot of drama. And ultimately, without even thinking about it really, I was preparing for the next step already. And I noticed that pattern within myself. I noticed that tends to happen for a lot of people. And even if it doesn't, or whichever order that it happens in for you, it's still a viable source of optimism or positivity when it comes to being laid off or being fired. The three biggest things that you have to remember, which probably this is what I should have started with, but I felt like the story was more important, you guys. The three biggest things that you have to remember when it comes to being laid off. Number one, rejection is often protection and redirection. And you will find on my channel that I did some TikTok reactions, and one of them was about rejection being protection. And when we're in a situation where we get rejected by a company, or we get rejected by a person or a group of people, sometimes it turns out to be in our best interest. And even if we don't know why yet, it turns out to be in our best interest. And a lot of the people who I see like online getting laid off are dealing with that initial anxiety and fear, which is causing them to have a negative, visceral reaction. And that's okay. You're entitled to that. You're entitled to be sad or upset or angry about being laid off. But you also owe it to yourself to have an optimistic perspective. And you never know where that company was going to go. That company might have gone down a path that does not align with your beliefs. That company might have asked you to do something that was unethical and threatened your job, because we all saw what happened during the vid, where the nurses and health practitioners were being faced with an insurmountable decision that now has been deemed as extremely unethical and unconstituted. And a lot of them lost their jobs for it. And sometimes our creator who loves us doesn't want us to have to go through that pain or even stress about making that decision. So oftentimes when we get looked over for a position, or we get fired or laid off, or even when someone chooses to go elsewhere for candidates, we are often being protected. That's why I don't understand why everybody's so mad about quote unquote DEI being canceled, because whether you're a minority or ex-military or, someone with special needs, if the company hiring you doesn't want you there just as you are, you shouldn't want to be there. You should never want to be in a job or a relationship or a friendship or anything where you don't want to be. You should never want to live in a neighborhood where you are not desired. And I think that would help a lot of people not feel so upset about things that we deal with in life, right? Like, yeah, okay, everybody should be welcome everywhere and everybody should be given an opportunity. And I feel like that is something that's right. But in reality, like me personally, now that I've let go of a lot of like baggage, I appreciate if somebody lets me know up front that I'm not wanted there. Because, bitch, I won't come. Okay, I won't come. You won't see my face because I'll find somewhere else to go. And I'll make a way for myself. And I'll know that in order to avoid being stressed out on my end, I don't need to be in that situation. So sometimes rejection can be protection or redirection. Now, the second reason why your layoff is truly happening and why you should look at it optimistically, okay, is that you're meant for something greater. In that whole story, I was definitely meant for something greater. I was in a position where I didn't know what the greater necessarily was yet, right? In the position I was in where it was getting eliminated, I didn't know that I was going to get that call midway through training because I wasn't going to just leave my job because I didn't like the fact that my position got eliminated. I prayed about it and I was like, listen, God, if this is what I'm meant to do, fine, but I need a better job because I can't be on these phones. Like, I knew that if I had to be on those phones taking escalated calls, it was basically, the department was called resolutions. That should tell you something. Resolutions. That's what my job was going to be 24/7. 7 days a week, not 24/7, but whenever I was scheduled. Okay. And I couldn't do it because the people who were coming into that department were already upset. And while in my position currently where I was handling escalations, every single call wasn't a negative escalation. Some people just wanted to tell me how great their customer service representative was. Some people just wanted to speak to a person who was able to give them more leeway when it comes to getting them what they need. Like, everybody wasn't just angry and hostile, but in resolutions, everybody was angry and fucking hostile. And I did not want to deal with that. And I knew that at some point that would wear away at my mental health and I would end up losing my job because I would not be able to perform. I don't perform well or do well when people are yelling at me or angry at me because I like to try to handle things in a more calm, cool, and collected, peaceful way. But if I have to continuously repeat myself, which I've stopped doing because I just won't repeat myself, or if I have to have someone aggressive, I break down. And it goes from lack of response to frustration, anxiety, anger, to being blacked out. So, and at that point, when I say blacking out, not caring anymore about the outcome and saying whatever and doing whatever to get you to stop, right? So I knew it wasn't going to work, but I didn't necessarily know where I was going to go, and I was going to do it if I had to. But turns out I didn't have to. It turns out that something else came along, even though I wasn't sure of it, and it was greater than what I was already doing. And now when it comes to my business and being an entrepreneur and being a person who creates content and speaks their mind on the internet and tries to help people, the same as I was doing as a server, the same as I was doing at Walmart, the person who tries to enrich people's life or bring some type of positivity or joy to people's life, I'm able to do it now on my terms, which is an extremely huge blessing. And it's allowed me and afforded me a lot of benefits in my life that I'm extremely grateful for. Now, it has its own set of challenges, but it's definitely an improvement from having to work under someone's thumb all the time or to be an employee. But I didn't set out for this. I didn't set out thinking that this was going to be the reality. And while you're in a situation right now where you might be confused about what your next step is or where you're going to end up, even if you don't set out to reach a certain goal, more than likely, wherever you were wasn't going to get you to that greater place that you're actually meant to be, to do what it is that you're actually meant to do. There may have been a limited amount of time that you were supposed to be there because there was certain people that you had to meet and certain things that you had to learn in order for you to go to the next level, right? And regardless of whether or not you know what that next level is, if you really look back on your life and pay attention, you'll see how that's played out in your life up until this point. So just know that more than likely you were laid off or fired because you are meant for something greater, and you're meant to take those skills and tools and abilities that you learned and apply it to a situation that continues to allow you to do what you're good at, but also benefits you in a more positive way. Now, the third reason why you really got laid off from an optimistic perspective is you need a stern but loving push, my darling. Okay? Because either you're going to jump or you're going to get pushed. If you were in a burning building and you had to get out that bitch, and there was no way for you to get out. And I hate using this analogy because there's so many negative events that have happened with this connotation, but it's real. And sometimes you need a wake up call. And that's what this reason is that you are being given a stern but loving push. And it may not feel loving right now, but when you look back on it, it more than likely is loving because of the other reasons that I mentioned. Because you do want to reach a greater height, or you do want to have peace in your career, and maybe you were being protected. So it's a stern and sometimes difficult but loving push towards that greater, towards what it is that you're really meant to do. And I think if you remember those things as you're experiencing what you're experiencing, it can help you to be a lot more positive about what's to come in the future, because you never know. You never know what your future is going to hold. You never know what can happen when you put your mind to something. Some of you who've been laid off have been really like wanting to become entrepreneurs or start your own business or work for yourself or put a lot more time and energy into your kids and your family. Whatever it is for you, this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning of what you'll be able to achieve, what I know you guys will be capable of doing. And some of y'all were just hesitating to jump because more than likely you wanted to jump anyway. And even if you didn't want to take the leap of faith into something more, your creator, whoever you believe in, or even yourself at the core, you more than likely wanted more, or you wanted to do more, and you were just too afraid. So I don't know. I hope that helped you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I have so many stories, darling. I could talk to you for days. What was it that I was going to talk to y'all about that I said that's a story for another time? I don't know. I'll watch it back. Y'all get in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe to continue to catch the vibe. Okay? Trying to get a thumbnail, y'all. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.